Hey, good morning guys. Sean here, back with another video. Today I've got a lot of things I've got to get done, but first we're going to make some breakfast. So in today's video, we're going to be doing a side-by-side comparison of my Silky Gomboy 240, this Ozark Trails 7-inch folding saw, and this muddy 7-inch folding saw from Rural King. But first, coffee. Okay, well that was a delicious breakfast. Kind of makes me want to post up there in the house and watch some TV and not get out here and mess around in the sun, but had to get back out here and put another season on the skittle on the griddle. We're not cooking with skittles out here. Before we get out in the sun and start getting hot, I kind of wanted to go over these saws with you and kind of give you an initial first impression on them. Now you guys have seen me use my Silky saw in the past. It's a Silky Gomboy 240. The 240 just indicates how many teeth there are on here. Now this blade, I want to say this is it may be a 10-inch blade. And these other, yes, it's a 10-inch blade, and these others are 7-inch blades. So that gives these guys a little bit of a handicap. But we're going to test them for, not necessarily for length, we're going to test them for whether or not you could scrape wood and make shavings with the blade. I'm going to test the ability to strike a fire steel with them, and I'm going to test them to see how sharp the blades are with a sawing cut. I fully expect the Silky saw to excel above these others, but I'm going to be honest with you. This Ozark Trail saw, this was $10.99, I think. 11 bucks. This thing immediately out of the package, it feels sturdy, guys. I don't know how sharp the blade is yet, but it feels sturdy. It actually feels, it's got a good weight in your hand. I don't like the little plastic clip, and I've already seen where if you pop this plastic clip off of there are pins in here that will come out, and it'll make this clip fall out. So that's something that you'll have to kind of keep an eye out for if you decide to get one of these. Immediately this thing feels sturdy in the hands. You have to push this in to open it, which is something you don't have to do with the Silky saw. The Silky saw, you can just grab it and open it. If it was a little looser, I keep mine a little bit tighter. If it was a little looser, it could actually fall open. This one, the Ozark Trail one, 11 bucks. Keep that in mind. It locks when it's closed, so you can't actually pull it open unless you unlock it. Now, I mean, and you hear that? It locks in place. It's good and sturdy, locked in place. The handle feels good. When I'm comparing it kind of to the handle on the Silky saw, the Silky saw is definitely a little more ergonomic feeling. This has got a little bit more of a hard edge on it, but not really a hard edge. It actually feels good in your hand. We'll see how well that translates into cutting. Now, and that one came from Walmart, $10.99 at Walmart. This one came from Rural King. It's a muddy brand. Aesthetically, I don't like the orange, but if you were out in the wilderness, let's say you drop this one or this one, it might be harder to find than this one because of the orange. This has the metal frame inside it, where these two don't have any plastic over them. This has a pin going through here that you can see. It's a little roll pin to hold this lock in place. Now, one thing else I should show you. This has a Phillips or flat screw, and it's got a little nut that stays in place in there. Whereas these only have a flat, and it has the rounded off nut on the back side of it. And that's the same with this one. Now this one has a flat on either side of it, so you can, use 2 screwdrivers to lock it or to tighten it up. Initially, this thing feels cheap. It was $6.99, so it is cheap. It locks now. It locks when it's closed, but you can see it doesn't lock real tight. But it does lock. That's something that the Silky Saw doesn't do. It has this lock here. You press it. Now, the thing that I don't like, this whole lock is plastic. And you hear that? It locks, but it's got some decent play in it. This is more of a square handle, and it doesn't feel as good in the hands. So, I don't really like the way that feels so much, but I gotta tell you, this blade looks pretty dang aggressive. Now, all of these blades, I don't have a set of calipers to test, but all of these blades look basically the same thickness. Now the Silky is obviously a little bit longer, but all of the blades basically look the same thickness. Now the way these things are designed to help keep from binding the saw, this blade is actually a little thicker on the tooth side than it is on the spine side. That way, as you cut through, the spine doesn't get bound up behind it. So we're looking at 35 to 40 bucks for the Silky Saw. $11 for the Ozark Trail saw from Walmart. And then $7 for the Muddy brand from Rural King. So, me doing a scientific side-by-side comparison is like me flying a helicopter. I kind of know how it works, but getting it done, probably a whole different story. So, you guys don't hold me too tight on trying to be scientific here. I'm just trying to do a simple, first impression, side-by-side comparison of this. My Silky Saw, I would put this in my pack and take it with me anytime. The only thing you have to worry about really with a Silky Saw is because of the blade being so thin, if you're not careful with them, these things have a tendency to break. A lot of times they'll break right here where it's got that little hole in it. So you have to be careful with them because they do have a tendency to break. So, that being said, would I want to put one of these in my pack in place of a Silky Saw? Would saving that extra $20 $30 be worth it to me? I guess that's yet to be seen. I've got my suspicions, but let's go test these things out and see how they work. Okay, so I thought about it, and I think cutting this piece of 1x2 will probably be about the most scientific thing I can do with this, because, you know, this 1x2 is probably roughly the same density the whole way. It's fairly soft, so you know, it'll give them a better chance, I think, of actually cutting. Now, harder wood would definitely be different, but it's the same thickness. One saw won't have a little bit thicker spot or whatever. So what I think I'm going to do is I'll just do 10 full passes with each saw, and we'll check and see how well the saw did, how the saw felt cutting. And so let's get into that. First thing we're going to do, I'm going to cut it with the Silky saw. So we'll try that one to start with. One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Well, the Silky saw only took 8 to cut all the way through that. So now let's try the Ozark Trail. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Well, the Ozark Trail is a little more catchy, and you can definitely tell that this blade is a little shorter than that one, so I'm not going to mark it off for that little slowdown, because that's just nothing it can do. It's a shorter saw than that. So it actually felt pretty good in the hand. It's a little bit it's not quite as smooth as cutting with the Silky saw, and 10 got it almost all the way through. So now let's try with the muddy saw. We're not on a knot here. Okay, so as you can see, halfway into the muddy saw test, my camera battery went dead, so that's what it got with 10 passes. But I'm going to do it again. The muddy saw is going to get a second chance to show you, just so you can see that it, you know, it did only get that far. So muddy saw gets the second chance. All right. 10. Okay. So the muddy saw, actually, it definitely takes more effort. It got that far with 10 passes. That's how far the Ozark Trail got. And then with 8 passes, the Silky saw cut it all the way off. Now, this blade is definitely a little more aggressive than those other blades. So that makes this saw catch and bind a little bit. The handle itself definitely doesn't feel good in your hands when you're trying to cut with it, so that makes it a little more difficult too. So that being the case, you see how the muddy saw compared to the Ozark Trail saw compared to the Silky Gomboy saw in the cut test. Now we're going to switch over to a piece of fat lighter, and see if I can make some shavings with the spines on these saws and see how that works. Okay, so now I've got here a piece of fat lighter, and what we're going to do, we're going to close these saws up. We're going to use the spine of this saw to try to push down and make some shavings. We could start with a fire steel. So first off, we're going to use the Silky Gomboy. Okay, now as you can see here, that thing made some nice little fluffy curls that I think we could probably get a fire steel to start. So I'm going to set that aside. Next up, we're going to do the Ozark trail saw. Now right off the bat, the Ozark trail saw feels more sturdy right here. It feels like the spine isn't wanting to bend like the silky saw does. And it's actually doing a pretty good job here making some curls. I like that. So we're going to pull these off and set these aside. Now, next up is going to be this muddy saw. Now let's see what kind of spine we have here. Okay, now I'm gonna say already that this feels like the Ozark trail saw. It feels sturdier than the silky saw. Feels like I can get a little more push on it to make shavings. As you can see here, we made some pretty, as you can see here, it made some pretty nice shavings. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to try to use the spine on these folding saws to strike a fire steel. Today I'll be using my trusty Uberleben fire steel. I'll leave a link in the description for this fire steel if you're interested in one. I love my Uberleben fire steels. I've been using these for a long time, and Uberleben's backed me up a few times, so I really appreciate those guys. And if you're looking for a good fire steel, I'd suggest checking out the Uberleben fire steel. So let's get into this and see if we can get a little tiny fire started on my wooden table. We don't want to burn it down. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to scrape this fire steel down some to make sure I've got a good clean area to work with, so everything is on the up and up. And as you can see, this silky saw, that thing will throw a hell of a spark. So now we're going to see if we can use this and this to get this to light. Alright, it took a few strikes, but this Silky Gomboy and that Uberleben fire steel really will get it going. So we're going to put that one out. And let's try the Ozark Trail next. trying not to get my sweat on any of it. Let's see how this works. Will this even throw a spark? Yeah, buddy. Now, as you can see, this didn't cut quite as fluffy shavings, so it's being a little more difficult to get the light. But this thing is throwing a hell of a spark off of it. There we go. There we go. Okay, so the Ozark Trail, it will work with the fire steel, no problem. It doesn't cut quite as fluffy shavings, therefore it takes a little more to get it started, but it definitely will work. Now we're going to move to the muddy saw and its shavings. Now, first thing I immediately noticed, these shavings look thinner and fluffier than the other two, and that may work to its advantage. So let's see how this thing works. Let's see if it'll even throw a spark. Yeah, it throws a spark. Maybe not quite as strong as the Ozark Trail, but it does throw a decent spark. We got some smoke that time. Whoop. There we go. So as you can see, for each one of them, we'll strike a spark from fire steel and get this thing going. Man, I have to tell you, it is freaking hot out there. So, final assessment on the side-by-side comparison of these saws. Now, I'm a little biased because I love my Silky Gomboy. It cuts great, it throws good spark. This thing, you know, has never let me down. I've used it on much bigger wood than it should have been used on probably, and it's never let me down. I love this saw. Having said that, it is $35, $40 depending on where you get it, and I'll leave a link in the description for this saw, but like I said, $35 or $40 depending on where you get it, versus this Ozark Trail saw from Walmart, which was $10.99, right at 11 bucks. As you saw, this thing did a very good job cutting. Maybe not quite as good as the Silky Gomboy, but this thing, for a shorter 7-inch saw, this is not bad, guys. For 11 bucks, I'm not going to trade it out for my Silky saw, but this could definitely go in another one of my packs, one of my emergency packs, to have just as a backup, or, you know, throw it in my day pack, and because it would definitely work for you if you had to have it in a pinch. And like I said, you've seen it. It did a really good job sawing. Now, harder woods, it may not work quite as well, but this thing actually did a very good job. I was very impressed with this $11 saw. So if you're looking for a budget saw to get into, just to have a folding saw in your pack, this is not a bad option. Now, I would always suggest to save your money, bite the bullet, and get a better piece of gear if you can. But to just get you started, this is a good option right here. This little Ozark trail saw is a good option. It's, very sturdy. I'm just all around impressed with it. Now, the muddy saw. This saw has ups and downs. You saw it try to cut. The teeth are so aggressive on it that it didn't want to cut very well. It hangs up real bad. The handle doesn't feel good in your hand. It just doesn't feel sturdy like the other two saws do. Where this one excelled was actually doing the shavings, cutting the shavings on there. This thing did a great job cutting shavings, but it didn't really throw that good of a spark. So, in my personal opinion, for $6, $7, $6.99, I would pass on this saw. I would pass on this saw, put a few more dollars with it, and go get this saw if you were looking for a budget saw. This saw may be okay for light work around the yard or cutting a random small limb, but even at that, I would pass on this and just get one of these. I don't think for the $7 that this is worth it when you can get, for $4 more, you can get the Ozark trail saw, and this is a pretty decent little saw. Now, I want to also say, I used this saw for a total of about 15 minutes. I don't know how this saw would hold long term. But, having used the heck out of this saw, I have used this saw a ton. The similarities in these saws, the way they're built, I can almost expect that I will get about the same amount of service out of this one as I will out of this one. So $11 versus $35 to $40. I don't know about getting replacement blades for this saw. That's something that I need to look into, that you may want to look into. Can you even get a replacement blade for this saw? On the other hand, the replacement blade for this saw is more expensive than buying this whole saw. So if you break this saw, or if you break the blade on this saw, it may be just as cheap to just throw this thing away and go get a new one. So, having said that, I think that this saw is a good budget option if you're looking for a budget folding saw to get into. Like I said before, I always suggest that Silky Gomboy, but for a budget option, this is going to be a great saw for you. Guys, listen, if this is your first time watching one of our videos, I want to say thank you for watching the video. I want to ask you to go back and look at our backlog of videos and see the other stuff that we do. I'd like to ask you to hit that little subscribe button down there. Give us a big thumbs up. Leave me a comment below. Let me know what you think about this video and the other videos. I get an alert every time you comment on one of those other videos, and I always try to reply to the comments if at all possible. So leave me a comment in the videos. Let me know what you think. If you are one of our subscribers, I'd like to say thank you for being a subscriber. Thanks for all the thumbs up, all the comments. Look out for our videos. I try to do the uploads every Thursday evening. They're normally up at 8 o'clock, and I normally try to do a premiere. That way I'll be in the live chat. So if you're watching the video, go down to that bottom bar down there, hit the live chat, and come hang out with me while we watch the video. So I appreciate you guys doing that, and there's some of you that I can bet on are going to be there just about every time. I want to give a shout out to Cliff, He's always, just about always, in the chat down there. I'd like to say thank you, Cliff, for just always having my back there. So I really appreciate that. Now, if you'd like to help support the channel, you can go into the link below. We've got a link for our Patreon, and we've got a link for our PayPal. If you'd like to help support the channel in any way, I'd appreciate that. If you do join the Patreon, then you'll get added to our Wild Bunch private Facebook group, and that'd be cool if you get a chance. If you want to do that, go link up with our Patreon, and we'll get you over into the Wild Bunch so you can kind of hang out with us sometimes. Also, I'd like to say thank you to my buddy Aaron. He's the one that drew the caricature, the coffee caricature that you seen earlier. He did a great job on that. Now, coming up soon, I will have stickers and t-shirts for of that caricature, and if that's another way that you'll be able to support the channel in the future if you're interested in doing that. So guys, thanks again for watching these videos. I really appreciate it. If you leave me a comment below, leave me a thumbs up, all those things really help to get the video out there through through YouTube's analytics, and it kind of gets them to promote the videos a little better. So thanks again for watching these videos, guys, and I'll see you next time.